Hello and welcome to RealBand 2012. In this video we're going to show you some of the great new features in RealBand 2012, and along the way we'll also show you some of the fantastic new 101 RealTracks from RealTracks sets 137 through 154. There are some things right on the main screen you'll notice right away, like a new horizontal master output VU meter on the main toolbar. There are also handy new buttons in the Tracks window for solo and effects, chords drawn directly onto the audio edit window, and there are also fantastic new features such as the inclusion of AmpliTube CS guitar amp simulator, coupled with our new direct input guitar styles, multi-riff selection, added loops support, and many more. But first, let's check out some of the 101 new RealTracks. In the pop rock category, we've got these new Texas blues rock styles with drums, electric bass, piano, 2 rhythm guitars, and 2 distinct soloists by Nashville legend Brent Mason and British blues prodigy Saul Philcox, who we're hearing right now. As is the case with everything you hear in this video, what you're hearing right now was created simply by entering chords like E, A, and B, or other chords like D minor 7 flat 5 or G7 flat 9, picking the style and the tempo, and pressing play. All of this was done in less than a minute, and RealBand then created what you're hearing in seconds based on the chords. This is true for everything you're hearing: the bass, drums, piano, rhythm guitars, and even this great solo. And here's some rockin' piano by John Jarvis. RealTracks set 146 features 3 great new fusion guitar soloists, including this medium jazz funk soloist. RealTracks set 147 includes more piano and organ by jazz great Mike LeDunn, including this New York bossa. And of course we have many new country styles, including soloists by pedal steel master Paul Franklin. And here is the Jazz Funk Breezy rhythm section from RealTracks set 145. In addition to the rhythm section, this set also comes with 2 soloists, electric piano and tenor sax. And we're going to use the sax soloist to demonstrate the same but different multi-riff selection feature. You can now audition 7 different RealTracks performances to choose the one that works the best with your song with a single click. This works for the entire track or the highlighted section of a track. In this song, we'll try just selecting 8 bars at the beginning of the song. I'll right-click and select Multi-riff Choose. This takes us into the RealTracks picker, and I'll filter by Breezy Sax. And I'll select this soloist. And it then brings up the multi-riff dialog with 7 performances to choose from. I'll try this one first. And here's another. You can solo the riff. We have it set to allow riffs to start early or late. So here is an example of a riff that starts early. And you can hear that there was a pickup on this one. There's other info as well, such as a range and note count. The note count on this one is the highest, so it's likely to be the busiest sounding. And so I can insert that performance right here. We'll show a few other examples of multi-riffs. That was with a soloist. Now let's try a rhythm and background instrument. That was one of our style demos, so for this we'll enter a whole new song. In the chords window, I'll type C, F, D minor, G, then the shortcut K4 to copy those 4 bars. Then A minor, G, F, and C, then again A minor, G, F, G, and then finally C. And I'll make our song 16 bars long. Now, we've released many soloist styles with Nashville guitar legend Brent Mason, but we've now included some finger-picking acoustic guitar styles with RealTracks Set 150. We have real styles that pair these RealTracks with some of our older finger-picking styles to create a really nice full sound. But there's another way to get that kind of sound using only the one RealTracks style on 2 different tracks. And again, we'll use the Multi-riffs feature to demonstrate this. I'll go into the Multi-riffs feature again, filter by Brent Fingerpick, and I'll pick this even 120 style. I'll try the first riff. And the second. Now I'll click Allow Multiple Riff Selection. And I'll select both the first and second tracks. Now we could of course pick as many as we want out of these 7, and RealBand will put them on the next available tracks, or we can specify different tracks here. I'll press OK. And we have 2 tracks that are both different. I'll pan them partially left and right, and we have a lovely blended sound with no duplication. So we've tried a soloist, and this, which is basically a rhythm track, and now we'll try adding a background style, which is similar to a soloist but is meant to still allow for a vocalist to sing over top of it. This last category would be especially useful if you've already recorded a vocal track and you want to piece together, say, a pedal steel part, because you'd want to try them all out along with the vocal line until you found exactly the part that blends the nicest with your vocal line. So once again, I'll use the Multi-riffs feature and filter by pedal steel, background, 120. And I'll pick this 136 beats per minute style, which will be stretched down to 120 to match our song. And again, I'll try out the first one. This one sounded pretty good to me, so I'll just insert that. And I'll add some bass to this. I'll filter by electric bass. And some drums. I'll filter by Nash to get some Nashville options. And you'll see in the RealDrums dialog, the different variations now are easier to read, where before in this area the variations would be hard to understand and would appear like BR, SN, SR, KCK, etc. Now it actually describes the variations in more detail, with additional memo information here, and if you click on it, you can clearly see the variation described, and the memo for the RealDrums style as a whole. And now we see we've pieced together a whole band, and we had complete control over the parts we wanted. Let's go to the style picker to show you some new features here. Those new drum groove names that we saw in the RealDrums picker also display here, making it easier to see exactly what you're getting. This area has also been expanded to show more information without having to scroll down. This area also tells you if the style has a soloist. In the filter dialog, there are new items to really help you find exactly the style you want. You can filter by styles with or without soloists. The RealTracks artist list now shows instrument and genre. There are dedicated genre checkboxes, a checkbox for exact matches for tempo, and more. I'll filter to not show styles with soloists, and I'll choose to show styles that have guitarist Darren Favorite. And we can see that there are a lot of styles with this guitarist. There's another filter on the main screen of the style picker, the simple filter. This is an easy way to just type one or more keywords and have the list narrow to display only styles with those words, without having to go into the actual filter dialog. So there are new praise and worship styles which are called Pop Promise. So I'll type that here. And we can now see that it's combined the two filters, and these styles have no soloist, use RealTracks with Darren Favorite, and have the words Pop and Promise in the name or memo. So I'd like to load the demo for Promise, which uses 2 electric guitars, acoustic guitar, bass, and drums. One thing you'll notice right away is that a comments window has opened up with the song Memo. This is new with RealBand 2012. Memos saved in Band-in-a-Box songs now display in the comments window and open automatically. Plus, if a song was actually saved with Band-in-a-Box 2012, which this song was, the auto-generated info about instruments and other info also appears. So let's listen to a little bit of this. Now with RealBand 2012, we've included over 150 direct input versions of these guitars. I'll use these useful new buttons here to solo the Pop Promise Crisp guitar, which was the one recorded by Darren Favorite. Now this was the recorded amp sound. But the direct signal from the guitar was also recorded, and you can now choose to use that instead. I'll go to this unused track and select a RealTracks. I'll filter by Pop Promise Crisp. And I'll select the direct input checkbox. Incidentally, any guitar, bass, or pedal steel style that has a direct input option available will have a Y in this column. So I'll press OK. And we're now hearing the direct input signal. Now here's the fun part. Also included with RealBand 2012 is IK Multimedia's AmpliTube CS. This is a guitar amp simulator that allows you to pick from many different guitar amp and effects combinations, or you can create an entirely new and unique sound yourself. So I'll press the handy new FX button on this track, and I'll select AmpliTube. So we can already hear that the sound has now changed as it's using the default AmpliTube setup. And we can try more. Here's the Low Gain Studio preset. Here's a cool, unique sound, the Cloud Top Flange. And we can see that the sound is created by a combination of pedals, amps, and you could have a split signal to use too, cabinets with mic placement, and finally, effects racks. I'll add a parametric EQ to boost the highs a bit. You can see that there are lots of options available to you with AmpliTube CS, but you can also see that there are some options grayed out. There are many additional pieces of gear that you can purchase using the AmpliTube Custom Shop. See www.ikmultimedia.com for more details. And now let's hear that guitar in the mix. And AmpliTube isn't just for adding effects to existing tracks. you can actually use it in real time with a guitar that you have plugged into your computer and record with it. To get this set up, first I'll go into the audio settings. I have ASIO for All selected as my audio driver. You do need an ASIO driver to do this. I'll then select Enable Input Monitoring, which means I'll be able to actually hear what I'm recording. If I wanted to actually record the track with effects, I could select this, but I generally find it's better if you don't, because you can always easily apply effects after the fact, and this gives you more control if you want to change anything afterwards. So we can hear that my guitar is now audible. Now I'll go back to the VST plugins, and I'll scroll all the way down to Input Monitor Insert, and I'll select AmpliTube here. I'd like to use the Harmonic Distortion preset. And you can hear that as I play, we're now hearing this sound. With compression, auto-wah, 2 levels of delay, flanger, and overdrive pedals, split into 2 separate amps and cabs, and an EQ effects rack at the end. Now, because of the delay, it's important to get the tempo close, so I'll tap that. And that's close enough. And now I'll record onto this unused track. So that was just a simple single line thing, but with AmpliTube it actually sounds pretty cool. So if I play, and I solo the track I recorded, we can hear that it's just the direct guitar input I recorded, which is actually better because we can now put the same plugin back on it. And we're now still free to edit the sound if we like. There's a new Style button on the main screen that has the most common rhythm section reel styles in the main 3 genres: jazz, rock pop, and country. You'll see that there's a description beside each and a tempo range. You should note that you should have tempo swapping enabled so the styles will work over this tempo range. And you also need to have all of the RealTracks in the range as well. I'll show you this in action by first entering some chords: C minor 7, F7, B flat J, which is a shortcut for major 7, E flat J, AH, which is a shortcut for minor 7 flat 5, or half diminished, D7, G minor 7, and G7. I'll type K8 to repeat those 8 bars, and then K16 to repeat the last 16. So it's just those same 8 bars repeating over and over. and I'll set the tempo to 140. And then I'll go into the Style button, and I'll select Jazz Swing Freddie Quartet, which loads a standard jazz quartet of acoustic bass, piano, acoustic guitar, and Jazz Brushes drums. And we can see that it's giving me a yellow flash message indicating that we should have tempo swapping turned on. And another new feature is that these flash messages are now interactive, so I can just click on it to turn it on. And I'll generate. With the handy new solo buttons we saw earlier, you can now select multiple tracks to solo by clicking the S button on all of the tracks you want to solo, which then turn yellow. And mute is now an M instead of a check mark or X. For now, I'd just like to solo the bass part and check it out. You'll notice that this bass player quite likes to embellish his part, adding a lot of skip notes and runs, which I love myself, but for some situations you may want a slightly simpler part. I'll mute this part and add a different alternate bass part on track 5. Now I'll pick exactly the same RealTracks style, but here is a simpler checkbox, which makes it so that only less embellished parts are chosen for the song. Incidentally, this column will display an S if there is a simple option for that style. There are over 90 styles with simple options, and we're constantly adding more. So now we'll listen with the original bass part muted and this new simple bass. And you can hear that there's now a lot less embellishment. Another new feature is that you can select a region of a track and right-click to save that highlighted region as WAV, WMA, MP4, M4A. So I'll save this little chunk as a WMA. And I'll check it out in Windows Media Player. Right now I have the demo for one of our new solo accompaniment styles from RealTracks Set 148 loaded. This is a medium bossa electric guitar recorded specifically to work without drums, bass, or any other rhythm section instrument, and it's ideal for backing up a singer or soloist. And here we have an alto sax soloist. We'll use this song to demonstrate the new loops feature. We've included percussion loops and nature sounds in Loops Set 1, and these loops are accessible by simply right-clicking on any track. This is the Loops dialog. Here we have our loops collection, which has 14 nature sounds and 7 percussion loops. You can add your own loops to this by putting them in C, BB, RealTracks, loops, in any subfolder you like. In this area, you enter information about the loops, such as whether or not to restart when the loop ends, if you want it to re-trigger at specific times, a decibel offset to balance the level. You can use the volume level on the track, of course, but this is useful to give you a good starting point. You can enter the tempo or number of beats, and the program can then figure out its tempo. You would do this, for example, with percussion loops, but probably wouldn't want to for nature sound effects. Then, if the loop has a pitch, you could also specify that here, and whether or not you want it transposed, and how exactly to transpose it. Once you do this once for your loop, the information will save specifically for that loop the next time you come in here. For example, I'd like to add a guirdo, and when I select it, the info is already set with a tempo of 124. which will stretch to 140 for our song. I'll add just a touch of reverb using that same effects button. Now let's try adding a sound effect into the mix. I'll pick Waves Ocean Windy. And it now feels like we're being entertained while sipping a drink in a tropical resort. Now, with these loops and AmpliTube and other effects like the reverb we added, we've shown you how to add these to your song. But styles themselves can now contain extra information like this. For example, we have styles that load specific reverb levels for certain instruments. We have lots of styles that load DI guitars with specific AmpliTube presets. And we have styles that load specific loops. The Nature Sounds loops go particularly well with New Age styles. So with Loop Set 1, we have 15 styles that utilize the various Nature Sounds loops. Let's check out the demo for the Thunder style. And here we have a New Age style with the sounds of rain and thunder in the background. We hope you enjoy the many great new features in RealBand 2012.